What if the reason that you've never felt truly seen isn't because you're weird or unlovable, but because of something that happened to you when you were just a child? Because I spent the last decade studying why some people feel invisible no matter how hard we try to connect. And here's what I discovered. There's a single childhood wound that creates almost like a black box around who you are, making it impossible for you to be seen by anyone. So in this video, I'm going to show you what this childhood wound is, how it stops you from being seen, even by the people closest to you, and how to heal and finally be seen for the real you. To show you how this wound gets formed, imagine there's two little kids running around their house, and out of nowhere, they bump into a table and a plate drops off and shatters. Now, each of their mom comes running in. The first child moms goes, "Oh my God, what happened, sweetheart? Are you hurt? It's okay. We just need to be more careful when we're playing, okay? These things happen even to me. We just need to make sure that the plates aren't so close to the edge, okay? And if you see the plates close to the edge, maybe you can help mommy push it in so that no one bumps into it." Now the second child's mom goes, "Oh my God, what happened? What's this mess? How many times have I told you just not to run around the house? This is what you get when you don't listen. Oh, look at what you've done. You've broken mommy's favorite plate. These things are expensive and we just can't keep replacing everything, okay? Just no more running around the house, okay? Don't be so clumsy." Now the first child walks away thinking, "All right, I feel bad, but I have to be careful next time because mommy got really worried. And it looks like even mommy breaks plates, and I can help by making sure that next time I see the plates close to the edge, I push it in so no one gets hurt." You see how he feels bad about his mistake, but intuitively understands that it's an external behavior that he can fix. He understands that other people make this mistake too, and it has nothing to do with him as a person. Now, this is called healthy shame. The second child, however, he walks away thinking, "I mess everything up. I'm clumsy and expensive, and when I'm just myself, when I'm playing, I can cause problems. Mommy is sad because of me, and other people wouldn't have hurt mommy like I did." Do you see how this child intuitively believes that he is the mistake, that it's his internal foundation that causes problems and hurt his mom? That he believes that something is wrong with him and him only. And when this plays out multiple times from other accidents or mistakes, a deep wound forms in his psyche. He believes that he is the problem. Now, this is called toxic shame. And if you've never felt truly seen by the people in your life, it almost certainly means that you carry toxic shame too. The belief that you are inherently broken. Now, tell me if any of this hits close to home. Growing up, your mistakes got put under a microscope. You're not allowed to do the things that most other kids got to do. You weren't respected enough to have your own privacy. And you were blamed for your sensitivities and told you were overreacting, even when really all you needed was just an apology. If you feel an ache hearing any of these things, these are the wounds that cause toxic shame. Now listen closely. When you carry toxic shame, all the signals that you give off to people, they don't represent you. They are heavily influenced by the toxic shame that you hold. And let me show you how that works. Toxic shame manifests in 4 very distinct behaviors that show up in every aspect of your life. Now let me jump into the first behavior. You know how when you have like a big pimple on your face, you get really embarrassed and try to cover it up the whole day? Like you look down, you use your hair to cover your face. When you hold toxic shame, you do the same thing, except this time, it isn't for a pimple, it's for your very existence. When you believe that you're broken, you try to make yourself as small as possible. You hold your ideas back in meetings, you use bland or neutral language to not get attention. When you're having a discussion, you abandon your stance and you back down quickly. You let others talk over you. Even when you're in a leadership role, you struggle to be assertive. And oftentimes, simply being in that leadership role just exacerbates your shame even more, as you believe that you'll be exposed for not being as competent as people expect you to be. So personally, at my worst, I was stuck in between this horrible place where I was actually happy that I was invisible, so no one had to see me and I didn't feel exposed. And yet, I also felt worthless, that I had nothing to offer and I wasn't appreciated. It was this weird, painful middle ground that left me feeling either extremely anxious or just numb. Now, this behavior is what I call minimization. And when you do it, all people see is someone who has nothing to say. So, not the competent individual that you are. So, no one really takes the time to ask you for your opinions. You're just a tag along friend or the invisible colleague that gets looked over for promotions. And then you start believing that you actually have nothing to contribute because people treat you that way. Now, minimization is a devastating pattern that makes you practically invisible, but the next behavior drains the absolute life out of you. So imagine you're moving houses, and on the day of moving, the moving company cancels on you, and you just panic. So you call up your friend, and he just drops everything. He calls in a sick day, and he helps you move. Now, after this, you feel indebted to him, right? You're treating him to meals and always offering him a hand whenever he needs anything. You want to make sure that you show him that you're extremely thankful that he did that for you. When you hold toxic shame, you treat everyone like that friend who helped you move. Except you're not thanking them for helping you move houses, you are thanking them for tolerating your broken self. When you believe that you are broken, you feel like you're a burden to others. So you constantly give and give, even when you are so tired, when you don't have the time, and even when you're straight up uncomfortable. The people pleasing is a sight to behold. You can't say no without feeling horrible. You over apologize even for the things that have nothing to do with you. You replay conversations over and over in your head, and on top of it all, you make sure to remove as many of your needs as possible because you just don't want to be too much. All because deep down, you feel like just existing is something to make up for. Now, personally, I swung between constantly giving and needing reassurance all the time, even though no matter how much I got, it just nothing made me feel good enough, or flipping on the other side and pretending that I'm cool, I'm fine, I don't have many needs. Now, this volatile swings made sure that everyone only saw me for the extreme ends, and no one, not even myself, knew what I looked like when I was stable and healthy. Now, this behavior is what I like to call overcompensation. And when you do it, what people see is an extremely giving person with no needs, not a human being who should be showered with love and care and attention. And as a side note, you know who's attracted to this kind of person? Toxic and narcissistic people who love all the attention that you're giving. They never have to take blame for anything because you take the blame for everything. And they get to use like reassurance and compliments to gain control over you and make you feel indebted to them for accepting you, a broken person. Now, these toxic relationships completely break your will when it comes to relationships, leading to the next behavior. Now, imagine you had a really, really messy house. You refuse to invite anyone over because you're just so embarrassed at how messy it is. And sometimes when you get really close with a friend or maybe even someone you're dating, you think to yourself, okay, I'm just gonna invite them to my house. But you push all the mess that's in your living room and stuff it into your room so your living room looks very polished. And you only let them come in through the front door and only stay in the living room. When you hold toxic shame, you believe that you are that messy house. You don't want anyone to visit. And when you get close enough to someone and eventually invite them over, all they get to see is that polished, clean living room of yours, that version of you that you think other people want to see. So when you believe you're broken, you don't want anyone to see that you are. Intimacy feels like a threat to shine a spotlight on your broken self. So you keep your guard up. You stay closed off. Friendships and relationships stay surface level, and eventually they just fizzle out because most people are bored and they don't believe things can really go deeper. Every social interaction feels like some exhausting performance instead of a potential point of connection. Now, personally, this behavior has made me lose some of my closest friends because my toxic shame had grown so deeply that I started distancing myself more and more, canceling plans like last minute because I just couldn't brace myself for the social interaction, which was hard for my friends or even me to comprehend because I had seemed fine initially. And that's the thing about toxic shame. It comes in waves. And I had developed that friendship when my toxic shame was kind of had eased down a bit. But then out of nowhere, it came back with like a vengeance. And I had became increasingly afraid of hanging out with them. And eventually I had explained like a year or so later that I thought that I had depression, but by then they just thought I was an excuse, and I can't blame them for it. Honestly, even had no idea what was happening to me either. I didn't even know I had something called social anxiety or toxic shame, none of that. And this behavior is called distance. And because of it, what people see is just a surface level human being or someone who pushes other people away and keeps their guard up. They don't see a complex, deeply emotional, interesting person that you are. So minimization makes you invisible. Overcompensation makes you a constant giver with no needs. Distance makes you guarded and closed off, and sometimes unpredictable. And when all of this becomes just too overwhelming, we develop the fourth and the final behavior. We try to run the hell away from it. Now, running away, it can come in all forms, whether that's being addicted to work, addicted to self-improvement, to a fitness routine, just to keep your mind busy and prove your worth through your accomplishments. Or you can try to run away from things like dissociating completely by numbing out, whether that's through social media, music, TV, eating, shopping, reading, pick your poison, honestly. Personally, I would straight up just disassociate for hours on end, and at one point, I actually thought I was an expert at meditation. Turns out I was just disconnecting from reality and buzzing out. Other ways I tried to run away was doom scrolling on social media, or I couldn't even find myself going anywhere without my phone because I just needed music playing in my ears. I just needed to be out of myself. Now, this behavior is called escape. And when you do it, all people see is the version of you that's escaping. The person who works all the time, the person who's endlessly scrolling through social media, the person who's watching hours and hours and hours of self-help. But is that really you? Which begs the question, do you even see the real you? Do you see your great ideas? Do you know what you actually enjoy? Not as an escape, but because it actually genuinely excites you? Do you even know what your needs are? Because if you can't see yourself, how can anyone else? Now, this is why people with toxic shame often struggle with anxiety and depression. When you can't access your real emotions, your real wants, your real self, life just starts to feel meaningless. You're not living for you, you're living for your shame. Now, if all of this sounds downright existential, I get it. I used to wake up every day with that sinking feeling like I just had to suffer another day to get through. Nothing really excited me. I didn't feel like I was living, I was just surviving. And the worst part was I thought that this was just who I was. That some people just get to be normal and get to be happy, but I'm not one of them. Now that was a belief. But honestly, that's the lie that toxic shame tells you. That the mess inside of you, it's permanent. It's too complicated to fix. Like trying to mop up a bucket of paint. You don't even know where to start. So let me tell you where to start. Over the years, I've developed a 3-part framework that's helped me and hundreds of others finally break free of toxic shame. When you wake up genuinely excited to be yourself, speaking up confidently at work, taking those scary leaps that you've been avoiding, and finally connecting with people who see you for the real you and love your particular brand of weird. Now, part 1 is where you identify what I call pivotal memories, the key moments in your childhood where you formed core beliefs about yourself. Now, here's what most people get wrong. While yes, when everyone who struggles with toxic shame, they believe that they are broken, their actual beliefs running your life are more specific and nuanced. Maybe it's showing vulnerability makes me a burden. This is why me simply telling you you're not broken wouldn't heal you. Because I'm not addressing the real beliefs embedded in your subconscious. I need to address the actual belief along with the context that it's formed. You need to pinpoint the exact moments that these conclusions formed and understand the logic behind them when you formed them as a child. Now, I call this part uncovering your origins. Now, doing this part alone relieves a ton of baseline anxiety that you live with, as you're showing your subconscious all this internal messaging that you learned as a child, and oftentimes even just a recognition feels like a weight lifted since you don't really believe in those narratives and conclusions that you made as a child, as an adult. You were just carrying this belief through life without realizing. Now, the second part, once you know your origin story, is you map out how those early conclusions shaped your entire personality. Which behaviors stem from a trauma response versus what is your authentic self? How are your various coping mechanisms connected? You can think of it as like an interconnected web. To heal one part of yourself, you need to understand what other parts will shift as a result. This prevents you from accidentally sabotaging your own progress. Now, I call this part mapping your psychological blueprint. Now, this part gets you so excited to see yourself in an entirely new light. You really start to appreciate even the smallest details that you couldn't really see before. It's like getting a new mirror to look at yourself in after using a broken mirror your entire life. Now, part 3 is where a lot of the healing approaches tend to miss the mark entirely. You learn to decode how other people work. Their communication styles, their stress patterns, their emotional frameworks. Now, this stops you from taking things personally because it allows you to distinguish between, okay, this person is upset with me versus, okay, this is just how they act when they're stressed and how they communicate when they're stressed. You stop putting people on pedestals because they're no longer a mystery to you because you're starting to pay attention to how they work. So you develop this social confidence that comes from truly understanding human behavior. And I call this part decoding social dynamics. Now, this part personally is the most exciting and impactful part for myself and the people I've worked with. But it can only be done after you've done the first two because it becomes infinitely easier to read people and pay attention to people once you've read yourself. Because then you know what to look out for. And this will have you feeling like you're like wearing new glasses after wearing broken glasses all your life. You'll see how you've been misreading tons of situations. Now, I know from experience that trying to heal toxic shame alone is like performing surgery on yourself. You can see the problem, but you lack the precise tools and the steady guidance to fix it safely. And this is why I work one-on-one with people through these 3 stages, to help you finally feel genuine excitement about showing up as yourself confidently. So if you don't want to figure this out alone, you can click the link in the description to see if working together could be the turning point that finally lets you breathe again. But if you prefer starting on your own first, here are some resources for each part of the healing process that I talked about. For uncovering your origin, Pete Walker's CPTSD from Surviving to Thriving book is unbelievably amazing. Plus, I make a ton of videos on the effects of toxic parenting that can also help you identify impactful memories. For your personality mapping and social dynamics, the Enneagram personality model and its core teachings about motivations and behavioral patterns are excellent for both understanding yourself and others. And the most important thing you gotta know as you're embarking on this healing journey is that underneath all of this toxic shame is a person that is unique, that is deeply compassionate, and extremely lovable. And I know you might be rolling your eyes when you're hearing this because I don't actually know who you are, but you gotta hear this. Over the years, I have had thousands of people who carry toxic shame reach out to me. And every single one of them were genuinely kind and interesting people. And if you think you're the exception, then just comment below and I'll gladly prove you wrong. Now, I know it's scary to think of who you are underneath all of this toxic shame because that's all you've really known. But things are always scary when you don't know what's on the other side. When you have toxic shame, uncertainty can often feel like a guaranteed path to something worse. But honestly, the fact that you're even watching this video and trying to find a way out is a step that most people don't take. So please be gentle on yourself. And if you can, be proud of yourself. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in the next one.